Welcome to Adjusted Reality, a podcast series trusted by the adjusted and brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, where we learn from athletes, celebrities, influencers, and healthcare professionals about how to optimize health in a fun, relatable way. Join me, Dr. Sherry McAllister, as we welcome producer and composer Roahn Hylton. Roahn Hylton is a Grammy-nominated multi-platform producer and composer from Houston, Texas. He rose to prominence as co-producer for Nicki Minaj's breakthrough hit, Super Bass, and has since worked with artists such as Nicki Minaj, Ariana Grande, and most recently, 2025 Grammy, Rocky Dawooni, and TV NBC Peacock's Bel Air, nominated for an Emmy this year on Saturday Night Live 50. And finally, The Age of AI, produced by Robert Downing Jr. He is a classically trained on the viola and graduate of Oral Roberts University. Hylton transitioned into composing for film and television, scoring projects like Free Meek and Kevin Hart's Netflix special. Based in Los Angeles, his work spans major campaigns, docuseries, and soundtracks across platforms. We cannot be more excited to welcome Roahn Hylton to our podcast today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is so much fun because, there is a glory to what you do during the day. And I personally feel very connected to seeing how people that are so engaged and at such a high level can bring the truth and the reality into how to live your life at the peak. And there's no one like you because your energy vibrates. And that's why I wanted to have you on Adjusted Reality. So first and foremost, I want to ask you something. What brought you the spark? Because we often talk about life is about bringing back the spark into everything that you do. What brought you the spark for music?
Man, I've been doing music as long as I can remember, to be honest with you. I've always been attracted to it and gravitated to it. My mom tells many a story of my childhood, just running to the screen when music would be playing. So to be honest with you, I can't remember when I fell in love with music. I just remember loving music. And I think my first real public facing foray into music was I was in Fort Bend Boys Choir. I think I started at 7. And it is as it sounds. It's a choir of all boys, starting before puberty, singing, the traditional Latin songs. And there's 3 choirs: there's the training, the town choir, and the tour choir. The training choir is as it sounds. You learn, you grow up into the town choir. The town choir sings all around town, and the touring choir actually sang for the Queen of England. And now they've done so much more in the long history that they've been around. And so that's where I got my music love started, that I can remember, and performing on stage. And then from there, I got tempted to play sports. I kind of went away from music a little bit, but it was always in my spirit. I joined orchestra in 8th grade because I liked a girl. And, I was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "I'm going in orchestra." I was like, "So am I." And so that proved to be a perfect boom, because then I learned viola and violin, and learned for orchestra, and then went to high school, played more sports, but kept playing an instrument. And then in high school, it was cool to be a rapper. And so I started making beats and rapping, and I was in a Christian rap group, and then went into college and studied the conservatory to become a better producer. And then from there, after college, my career, like, I stayed on music, and my career kind of exploded. And I realized that music was the one way I could be seen in the world, in a very authentic way, and communicate my desires and dreams in a way that other people could understand as well.
This is really what the key is for being on Adjusted Reality, is having that way to express yourself and be at your best. And I think bringing on guests that have achieved such celebrity status and such influence in the world really brings that core essence for those listening, is you can be who you want to be if you're willing to do the work. And that's the key that I love about your story is you were willing to do the work and you didn't get pigeonholed into something you didn't want to do. And I'd love for you to kind of share with me some of the projects that you've worked on to give kind of a background to who you are to our listeners and some of the things that you've loved doing. And even in when I listen to the songs that you have composed and brought forward, there's a lot of love in your music. And it kind of comes out because you noted some of your background and being able to be in the mix of it and the Christian choir. It's fun to be able to express yourself vocally and now producing and composing. So share more about some of your favorite things that you've done in your past that led you to where you are today.
Man, that's a big and broad question. I love it though. I think I always have this saying, right? You can pay somebody nothing to do what they love, but you can't pay them enough to do what they hate,
Oh,
right? And I've literally just chased my yeses from as early as I could remember, just the thing that made me excited. There's also this famous book, and it became a movie, called The Fountainhead. And I remember there's this long soliloquy by one of the main characters, and the main point, amongst other things, was love the doing. Right.
yes.
It's the if you love the hard work, right, then the perks become just a natural flow of your life because you actually love the hard work. And for the longest, I just love the feeling that I get in creating music, right? And as I've gotten older, I realize it's not just music, it's creation, period. Anytime I get to create and I'm ideating and bringing things in the world and then executing them, I just love it. Music is one of the things that you can do pretty quickly. You can ideate, put your hands on a keyboard or hands on a guitar, bass, and you can hear sound, and that vibrating back is communication that your ideas are actually real in the world. And so the projects that I've had the most enjoyment are the projects that do that to the 10th degree, right? Like, so my first placement, right, was a song on Flow Rider in 2007, called Make a Wish. And I thought I was a good producer, right? My friends liked my beats. They like my beats better than my raps. So I thought I was a good producer, but then when I was acknowledged by the industry, right? When people in the industry who hear all the best all the time started to look at me and say, "Hey, you got something," then I was like, "Oh, Erica Badu has this famous saying. She says, I'm an artist. I'm sensitive about my shh. I won't cuss on your podcast."
Thank you, family orientated.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing about being validated and knowing that the thing that you feel good about, others feel good about too. And that was my first time to get that commercial validation. So I would say that's a project that I loved. And then obviously, the biggest record that I've been known for was Super Bass, which was life-changing, transformative for all of us involved. What was interesting about that is I wasn't signed to a publishing deal, and for those who don't know, as a songwriter or producer, there's a publishing deal which you can get, which allows you to work in the business, and you get to work with your peers. It's basically you're signed, and it's those signed behind closed doors, right? So you're songwriting, you're producing for other artists, and I didn't have a deal, right? But I'd made a international top 10 record without a deal, and so it allowed me to move around and be courted by the industry in a level even above my first placement. And so Super Bass is more than a song for me. It was a moment in time that shifted my life. So I would say that one as well. And then fast forward years later, and to this year, and I had, well, actually, let me go to 2022.
Sure.
A friend of mine is from Ghana, and we worked together often. And he had been telling me for years, he's like, "I got to get you to Ghana. I got to get you to Ghana." And finally, I had been on this trip also to Israel, which was an amazing opportunity to meet fellow creatives. We got to go see everything, and make great connections. And I was like, well, why don't we do what we did in Israel, in Africa? And met Rocky Dawouni, who had done an incredible event bringing the diaspora back to America. And we kind of collaborated on this great event in Africa. And we wrote 30 songs, brought eight songwriters and producers, two executives from Netflix and Netflix and Warner Brothers, and the music that we made from that camp in Africa got nominated for a Grammy this year. And why that's so significant is there was no label help, it was self-funded. It was strictly a labor of love, right? We had some brand partnerships and that we worked with the festivals at the time. Afrofuture, Afro Nation, and Black Star Line were three amazing and emerging festivals, and we got to have a presence there, but they weren't, they didn't give us any money, and there wasn't an upstream for the songs to go to anywhere. So we had to do all the work. And for us to get recognized from the music from that project without a label help meant everything, because it's another saying I have: why prove others wrong when you can prove yourself right? And
Yes.
it was a proving right of, hey, when you do something for other people, you really will be rewarded at the highest level if you persevere. And then following that, moving into television and film, which is its own separate journey and acknowledges the storyteller in me. All those projects have been super rewarding, and I'm super happy and grateful to be a part of them.
As I listen to you, there is this fine weave. It's almost an amalgamation of everything that you have used for your talents, your creativity, which we often call our right brain. The left brain is the one that's really analytical, the logical side, the side that has to pay the bills and do all the pieces, that's transactional. And then there's the creative, the sharing, the caring, the building, the exploring, the opportunities to work for the right reason at the right time. And that's where, when I saw your energy the first time, I thought to myself, when we talk about healing at its basis, it starts with finding the energy to take you from where you are to where you want to go.
Mm.
And Rowan, you have built a life that really is supercharged.
Mm.
It's finding that place where you're utilizing your talents and you keep exploring. And you said something that I think the listeners need to hear a little more of, which is you were on a campaign of yes. Tell me what that means for you.
Man, in the music business, we can call the elephant in the room what it is. You get a lot of maybes. You get people who are orbiters of your success, right? They want to stay close enough to you, just in case you get the next one, that they can still call you and be friendly enough, but they have their own things going on, so they want to make sure that they're adhering to their own worldview and what's going on with them, so it can feel very transactional. And I remember I come from a place in Houston, Texas that was very family oriented and friend oriented. My best friends are my family. Really, literally, my best friend's dad is my mentor and my dad. I can call him up at any time and be like, Pop, I need help with this. Help me with this, or give me this advice. He's literally my father and has fathered me. And his mom is mom number two. She'll text me for my birthday, hey, it's mom number two. And I grew up as friends as family. And, the world is a real place. As I left the nest, went to college, I was quickly disabused of the notion that everybody's raised like that. And then getting into the music business, I also realized it's not like that everywhere, right? So what I quickly found to protect myself and to make sure that I had upward momentum without killing the light and the spark in me was going for my yeses instead of my maybes, right? And we all know what that means internally. You can meet somebody, right? And immediately you're talking like you feel like you've known them forever. Yes,
Yes,
right?
yes,
You can
Rowan,
meet
that's right.
you can meet somebody. That's us, Sherry. That was us.
That's
You
right.
can meet somebody and immediately be like, no, 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 no. We don't vibe. But the worst are the maybes,
Uh,
because you can't tell where you stand, right? And so I realized instead of maybes, instead of no's, triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down on your yeses, because your yeses will find you in a space where your life is tailor made for you. And a life that's tailor made and built like you can't imagine, but it's better than your imagination.
oh,
Yeah, and so that's my yeses. Man, I should do something with that.
I was going to say that's juicy.
Do something with that. I felt good about that one.
You juice me up. So let me tell you a famous quote that my mentor, Dr. Lou Sportelli, he is a 60-year plus chiropractor and just a zest of life. Like he is really just a wise man. And he said to me, he gave me this quote, And it's by Henry David Thoreau. And I can't get it out of my mind because as soon as you started saying what you were saying, it stuck. It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see.
Mhm.
And what you see, Rowan, are yeses. And in your life, to be fully charged, supercharging that whole being care that really makes you who you are, is you have to follow the energy because that's what life really is. It's the energy vibe that brings us to it. And when you follow the yeses, you're following the optimism.
Yes.
It kind of pumps you up. Like you have a better day. And before we got on this podcast, you even said sometimes I give up a little on myself. I don't get the exercise in, but I'm still going to give back to myself at the end of the day, right? That's what you said. And that makes me kind of energized to know that you also see the beauty in yourself
Hmm.
because you're bringing the beauty from the inside to the outside by helping people find their confidence, their security, and their peace of mind. Family is critical. And don't you think when you look back over the years and you meet other people that perhaps have less of a consistently nurturing environment, they become hardened to the world.
Yep.
And when that happens, I believe the energy starts to get sucked away from them because nurturing people and who they are and what they stand for, those are our yes moments. So
Yeah.
let's go back for a moment because you have a powerful effect on people through the creativity that you do. And it can range because you're very that's the beauty is you've shared your talent but you weren't afraid to try new things. And I think that's how we heal. And some of the things that happen to us, whether it's a physical trauma, a mental trauma, or stress trauma in the job that we've chosen and it's not turning out well, we heal by the things that we focus on. One of them being the willingness to try. And you kept trying new things. We can call it, I don't like labeling it because the resilience term has been oftentimes overused, but the creative portion of you, what made you go from being a composer to doing production? And did you fear? And if you did, tell me how you broke the fear.
Man, that's such a great question. It's actually opposite. I started out as a producer and then went to a composer. And so the reason why this happened is I went on, I briefly mentioned this incredible trip in Israel. But what was happening is I didn't like who I had to be in the music business at the time to survive, right? I was often going by my alias, which was Firstborn, to hide behind. And if I don't know if you, I'm not comparing myself to the legend who is Beyonce, but you've ever heard her bring up Sasha Fierce, right? That is her persona that she embodies to be able to be a product, right? Which is essentially what her artistry is. It is the product version of her. It's not the Beyonce. And if you've observed her career over the 20 plus years, 25 plus years now, you can see the evolution though that she's been able to integrate Beyonce into Sasha Fierce, right? To now her work is even that much more beautiful. And I think that happens when you have kids and you get in your 40s, you're more embodied. But at the time I was not embodied, and it was very difficult for Rowan, who you see now, to be able to be my full integrated self and feel safe. And I was noticing I wasn't having fun making music anymore. I wasn't having fun being in the sessions. I was in the studio with all the names you can think of, and it just wasn't enjoyable to me. And I started to realize it's because I was not embodied. And so I quickly realized not only was it a smart human decision, but financially there was more television shows at the time than there was artists that still had budgets. And so I was like, I'm classically trained. I know how to do some things, and I went on a trip and I met who my current partner, Jacob Yaffe, incredible human being, is my brother. We met on the trip and we wanted to find a way to work together. And I was working on Kendrick Lamar at the time, and Jacob is an incredible jazz musician and orchestrator. And then I was like, yo, let's figure out how to make it work. I also got called in to do my first film. Now, I had never done a film at the time, and I was like, hey, we can do multiple things. Let's find a way to collaborate and work together. That's also been a secret of my success is collaboration, which I want to hit on later. And so we ended up working on a film. The film wasn't, nothing came of the film or the Kendrick tracks. They didn't pick anything of it, but we got to do a Gap campaign working with Janelle Monáe. We loved working together. And then LeBron called us for our first work together in 2017, it was. And from there, we're 20 shows in, 5 features. And I'll tell you, it was a very scary proposition to transition for me from being a producer to a composer for various reasons. And the imposter syndrome kicked in, right? There's not a lot of people who look like me in the space, first of all. And there's not a lot of people who relate to the world like me in that space. I
Sure.
relate to the world as a music producer. And as a black man from Houston, Texas, like I didn't see a lot even at the time of programming that felt like I could add to it. And then there was the resurgence of television, and it was a great instinct and anticipation. And great stuff happened subsequently, but I had to get over the imposter syndrome and that feeling like I didn't belong. And even to that point, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had 2 jobs in my life. One was at Walmart my freshman year in college to get my Mazda 626.
Ah, there we go.
I was a cashier, and then my second job was at Guitar Center, which I got to be myself. Literally, I could sell equipment as a music professional to other music professionals. I was great at it, and then I was like, I don't want to have a job. And then from there, I just did entrepreneur life. And so just to that point, corporate America was not my ball. I did not know how to send a corporate email. At the big age of 35, I'm like nervous to send an email because per your last requests were making me nervous. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like for all of you who have used or got used to corporate America jargon, imagine being in your mid 30s after having had, a career where people cater to you as a producer who's produced hits. They just did what I said on emails. And like just to be frank, like I could type shorthands. The emails were probably horrible, but everybody would kind of, make space for what I didn't know, for what I could do in the studio. In the film business, you need to send emails. It doesn't matter who you are. You got to be able to communicate yourself effectively in a corporate environment. And that was terrifying, Sherry. Terrifying. Took me 4 years to feel comfortable being the one to send emails. I'm going to be honest with you. And thank goodness I had a great partner who was willing to be a partner and teacher at times. And there's things that he would say that I was able to teach him as well from my worldview. And that seamless partnership and collaboration allowed me to embody Rowan, right, as I needed to in the storytelling world. And so transition wasn't easy, and I think these transitions never are. I'm currently in another one, right? We do these things every so often if you're creative. But I won't let imposter syndrome cost me years this time.
That's really the critical component, Rowan, is as I hear you talk, you had to recognize it. Sometimes the most important thing we can do in our lives is to recognize where things are right now and then push your way through it. Push your way through because imposter syndrome is real. And I think everybody faces it at some time, unless you have some type of a huge ego that you just think you're all that in a bag of chips. And I think that's probably the person you never want to be anyway. So you talk about collaboration. I think it's a key aspect to fundamental. No one wins alone. And if you think you're winning alone, you may be just in a room by yourself thinking you're all that in a bag of chips. So
Man, and the great humbling is not too far away.
that's right. And you have those reflections back to just writing those emails and recognizing this is not what I do. But you also recognize too that for a better place to happen, I need to grow. And that's one of my favorite sayings is what doesn't grow dies. And you keep that honest energy alive by going from being a producer to trying out what does it mean to be a composer and who can I work with? And wow, what a great journey. And who goes to Israel to have a full remaking? I'm like, it's such a cool story. But let me go back because you said something that I think reflects life itself. There are environments that will eat you up. You had to reflect it, you had to see what it was, and you then stopped and you regained your own fundamental foundation. This is Rowan, the person who is good, just, honest, and right. This is a person who wants to have fun, but also create and make a better world.
Mm.
Let me ask you this: as you were going through that reconfiguration of who you were because you started to see yourself slip, you probably saw some things in the producer world and the composer world that was like, that's not me. I don't want to go there.
Yep.
Tell me what that was like. And then how did you ensure that you didn't continue going down that road? Because the Yogi Sherry in me is when you hit a fork in the road, you take one. So hopefully, like Robert Frost would say, and it made all the difference, right? The road less traveled will make the difference. Share with us on that.
Man, this is so good, Sherry. The thing that first comes to mind is a little bit of a different answer than consciously I want to give you, but I want to, I, one of my best friends says I illustrate through, or sorry, I communicate through illustration. But I'll give you one example where I really remember wanting to shift. And so there's this award ceremony where it's the ASCAP Awards. I'll name it.
Okay.
The ASCAP is like a trade organization. It's a performing rights organization. They're responsible for collecting royalties on behalf of songwriters. And there's two. There's the ASCAP Pop Awards and the ASCAP Rhythm and Soul. And the Pop Awards is huge, right? It's every name you can think about are the artists, the producers who write the songs for all the hits that are on the radio.
Okay.
And I never forget Super Bass had won a pop award. And it was interesting because the people who I created that song weren't with, we weren't in great communication anymore, and they had been great friends. We had been great friends. And so I was there alone. Okay. And it was very difficult because as I tried to explained earlier, I grew up in community,
Sure.
right? And so here I am at this event in one of the most important moments of my life, right? And I'm by myself at this table, and I never forget this feeling of being alone. Now, there was another collaborator on that song, who ended up being ASCAP as well, and he turned out to be an incredible producer. His brother was a well recognized, not recognized and known producer. I'll shout him out. His name is J Mike. And they're brothers, okay? And so they're there together. Their mother and their father were there. Their mother and father are ministers, and they just welcomed me.
Oh,
And Sherry, it was, I know you could feel it the way I said it. It was so beautiful and authentic and loving. And it was at a time I needed it the most. And I never forget, they announced my name for the award, and people are clapping, and remember the way there's politics in the music business, and usually there's silos, and people are discovered through certain mechanisms. And if you're not in certain groups, then people don't know you. And they're often like, well, how did you get here? Right? And so I didn't come through a traditional mechanism. And as such, I didn't have a group or community behind me. And so I never forget walking up to the stage. I was sitting fairly close, and it's the who's who. It's all the names, the biggest producers in the world. Most of these people I know by name, had never met. And I never forget there's one specific group. I won't name them, I'll leave them nameless. But I could see them just looking almost and clapping like, how did you get this without us knowing you? Right? I could feel it. And I got my award, and I was like, man, this is hollow. I don't want to win awards by myself. I want to win awards in community. And go back to what I said earlier. This is why this year's Grammy was so impactful, because I did just that. And it took me 10 years, took me a whole, no, 12 years to get back to another awards run. But this time, these are my actual brothers, right? And the people who I produced that song with, I talked to on the phone about life. And that was who I wanted to be in the world, how I wanted to show up in the world, and how I wanted how I wanted my world to reflect that I'm in community, and I'm making community with people I love, respect, who love and respect me, and we're winning together. And so I would say that was one of those moments where I was like, okay, this isn't right for me. And no matter how much it feels like or appears to be right, and I'm checking off the boxes, what's most important to me, what my yes is community.
Oh, okay. So your yes is that was a setback. It was your setup for this comeback in 2025, which is so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I felt the tears in my eyes because I had an author on in a previous Adjusted Reality episode who really just gives her heart and her soul, Julie Holtz. And she wrote The Connection Cure, and it's being able to connect people to do better, have better, and be better. And she did it through the discovery as a journalist of, it's so easy to get a prescription pad for depression.
Hmm.
But can you give them a prescription pad to get out into the community and start working with others, be in nature or build something with someone? Because you said something that I think happened during COVID and it's so devastating. And whoever is listening right now, know first and foremost, there's hope. And because there's hope, you can cope. And those are really specific terms I use because if you're feeling isolated and alone and you just heard Rowan's story of, I'm not this person, I'm not sitting at this table by myself. I want to build something beautiful. I want to create a world where we all win. There's always going to be winners and less than winners, but never losers because you can't lose in life unless you give up.
Mm.
And that's where I think the beauty of today's world is that if you can find a culture or we can stimulate a culture that has an adjusted reality that I'm your friend, I'm going to help you cope if you're going through some tough times. And that sounds like your brother that you were just talking to and the mother that said, I'm mother number two, but I'm here, son. I'm here with you and I'm going to be there for you. And the father that gives you the wisdom that will help you determine, who am I when I falter?
Hmm.
And can I create better? And then your heart is full when you bring others with you because
Yeah.
no one does this alone.
Can't.
And the end place, we're all going to be at the same end place. The question is, did we give back? Did we give a legacy of love and pieces the nuggets that you're sharing today that showcase that moment of reality, the stress? You've been in a very interesting environment that's not typical for most people to be in because the stakes are super high
Hmm.
and the judgment is ultra hard. It's like every day you're being judged. Are you good enough? Did you do it? That imposter syndrome can pick up and play mind games. But let me ask you this. When times get tough, what's the self-love that you give yourself? What are some of the healing things that you've seen? Because sometimes this industry can be riddled with some unfortunate use of drugs to get your back on the track, use of alcohol to numb some of the experiences. But worst is the self-loathing that you can see in many of the potential talents that you've worked with.
Man, you asked the best question, Sherry. I think it's been an ongoing process, right? So first things I just discovered, I love the beach. I discovered my love for the beach and just putting my feet in sand and grounding. These are things, this is lexicon of vocabulary I didn't have at first, right? I just knew that after a session or after a meeting, I was feeling really anxious or triggered. My nervous system was not regulated. Also, vocabulary I didn't have. So I just go to the beach at first, right? Just get the fresh air. And then I'll get out of my car, put my feet in some sand, and then it turned into just driving late at night, decompressing and exploring Los Angeles where I live. Then it turned into discovering new places by just energy. Like I can't tell you how many places I found in LA that are beautiful recharging places that I've just found by just driving and being connected and following my yeses, and also not following street signs. By the way, the home I live in is in a neighborhood I would have never found if I would have followed street signs. Very interesting. Let me unpack that a little bit. They literally say, do not pass, or it would say road ends here. And I started to go past the signs through the dark roads and found bigger neighborhoods. And it taught
Ah,
me a lesson about life, right? That there's certain signs that you're supposed to follow, and there's certain signs that if you know, you know. And that was really a big discovery. And so I use that as a analogy for my self-care. So my self-care routine just evolved from just discovering those places to then finding places where I go and I meditate. I go out, get in the water, put my feet on the sand. There's a beautiful place called the Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF, Lake Shrine, built by Pramanasa Yogananda, who was responsible for bringing yoga into the States. I'm sure you know. And there's two locations. There's the headquarters that's in Mount Washington, and there's a beautiful lake in the Pacific Palisades, which is a whole nother thing that was preserved even in the fires.
Wow.
There's a special providence there. And then there's another beautiful place I go to in Ojai. Spent a lot of time in Ojai, which is about I think it's 20 minutes. Sorry, 20 minutes, 90 minutes south of here, right before Santa Barbara. Just a recharge, a spiritual recharge. And there's a sound bath I go to there. And then I like to challenge myself. And so as you can see, I'm wearing this crystal here. And the story behind it is, it was my birthday this year. On my birthday this year, in February. I hate the cold. Sure, I do not like to be cold at all. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna challenge myself. So of course, what do? I decide I'm gonna climb a mountain in the snow by myself. I had a guide.
Wow.
Shout out Paula Venus, incredible guide. And he took me in the snow. And mind you, I'm a kid from Houston. My family's Jamaican. I'm first generation. There's no snow anywhere in there. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna challenge this. And he took me up on a hike, like in snow boots. We're walking for hours. He takes me to this beautiful location and just meditate. And he just left me there for a bit. And just, I was just integrating my year, planning my next year, which is this year. And he comes back to me and we left the place and he has the staff. And in the staff, he hands me the staff at first. He was like, no, no, wait. And he opens the staff and in the staff was this crystal. Gives me the crystal. He says, you're the guide now. And I was like, all right. So I wear it to remind myself the responsibility, right? A lot of people think leadership is a destination of perks, but leadership is responsibility. And being a guide is about being vulnerable and being strong and smart enough to be taught by those who you're guiding. And be aware enough to pick up the signs and lessons along the way. And so that is my self-care. It's self-discovery. It's being open to try new things. It's, doing things that might confound another person, but listening to my inner guidance system to know where my personal yes is, not yours, but my personal yes. And making space for myself and
That
taking up space.
that's kind of a crucial part because we tend to be fairly eclectic in things that we do and people we meet that bring wisdom to you, but rarely do people accept agency for themselves. And that what I call shock raw in the snow, the shock of being cold, being isolated, being alone, and not in a place that you've ever felt comfortable in is
Hmm.
really the shock to your system and the
Hmm.
ability for you to take responsibility for who you are. And that crystal is exactly that. Take today the journey you choose with the resources you choose to build a better life. And I really think where you are, you're building the sound of healing. You're building it through the production that you do, the composing that you do, and the willingness to try new things. And that I think is a really beautiful place where people can really legitimately see themselves in you and say, I didn't really recognize the anxiety that I suffered, but Rowan said, go to the beach and put their feet in sand. And then I have a Japanese professor who once said Renshin Yoku. And I was like, I have no idea what you just said. Sound bathing. That's what you need to do. You need to have forest bathing. That's what you need to do. And then you talked about the sound of healing when you were doing the baths that you went to, the sound baths.
Yep.
Tell me when you go in those, because it's so unique, because your talent is so much in the composing now and coming from the production. So what happens to you when you get into a sound bath? Does it overload you? Because your whole brain works differently when you're in musical interpretation and opportunity.
So I want you to repeat the last part about it because there's two things that you said. You said something about force bathing. I
Forest bathing.
forest or for
Forest.
oh
Forest
forest.
bathing. Yes. Rinshin Yoku, forest bathing, getting out in nature and feeling the vibe, the energy, the
Yoku.
exquisity.
I'm writing that down now.
Yes.
So I want you to repeat because that just really caught my attention because I was like, okay, that's something new to try. Um, Repeat the last bit of the question for me.
So you go into a sound bath
Okay.
and you reflect
Yep.
because you're hearing frequencies different than the average person would because
Yep.
you're in the frequency. Like people don't understand your brain literally works differently when you're in the creative mode and you hear the frequencies and the intensities and you know when music comes together, you know what a score looks like and you
Mhm.
need to have you know how to bring the heartbeat into a moment and you
Mhm.
know how to bring the peace and the love into a moment.
Mhm.
And that musical capability, you may not even know this, but that's a really special moment in a
Hmm.
person's life and they see it differently. So your brain works differently. So going into a sound bath, because I've done them several times myself, and I've recognized that as a healer, I sense different things when I
Right.
come into it and when I come out of it. I just wanted to see if you notice it. When you come out of that sound bath as a composer, does it change you? Do you notice it?
Yeah, and all sound baths aren't created equal. There's a reason why I drive 2 hours for this particular one, right? And it's run. Well, I'm not sure if the name is still the same, but it was run when I first started going, which is 10. I've been going to the sound bath for 10, 12 years.
Okay, so it's worth it.
Is it? It was run by three women called Trinity of Sound. And to be honest with you, oh, I remember. I first found out about Meditation Mountain. That's the name of the space that I go to through friends. Okay. Just friends. We went to go visit one day. And again, it became one of my Zen places for years. Again, been going now probably 15 years. And I would go every once in a while because it's far. And then I started going more frequently. And then Ojai, there's a great Ojai fire. I want to say about 7 years ago. Don't remember how long ago. And it was closed for 3 years. And I could feel its absence. So when it came back, I made sure like now I go twice a month. And I remember they'd advertise, that on Fridays they have a sound bath, and I'm probably blowing this up and probably saying too much and everybody's gonna go now. Um,
Ruining the secret.
yeah, but it's fine. I think the place is a beautiful place that if you can visit, it's a place to visit. However, yeah, I wasn't going very often, and then I started going, and it makes a huge difference in that I a lot of my stress and anxiety that I'm more just putting in my body, like my clenched jaw, like fidgeting with my hands. Even while we're talking, I'm in the most peace and I'm just playing with my hands, right? And I realize that a lot of our lives, our nervous systems are hacked, right? For advertising purposes. You don't realize that the raw animal nature of you is being activated. Um, just being activated in ways that you can't imagine. And so what happens is the sound bath uses frequencies to reactivate in a healthy way these systems in your body that you may think are laid dormant or that you're not aware of. And as a musician, I can feel it working on me in the same way when I hit certain chords or when I know if I'm literally as a composer, we have to do cues, and what they are is they're emotional cues. So I'm literally having a conversation musically with the audience between the filmmaker and the watcher of the show. So I'm in between the emotions vibrationally, right? That's literally what I'm doing. And so to have somebody work vibrationally on me, right, where I get to be passive and I trust them to put intention and healthy vibration into my body, it allows me to release things that I've been holding on to or that I've just unwillingly or unknowingly been encountering. And I think it to be real energetic work. It's like an energetic massage. That's the best way I can say. And
Oh, you just said it. You said
yeah,
it
not
beautifully.
yeah, and not all sound baths are created alike because there's other ones I go to that are local, and I'll be like, okay, this is just an app.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same things, right? The same sound stuff, but it's an intention and it's a embodying of healing frequencies that I recommend if you're open to it.
That's the sound of healing. And I know there's a famous quote from Albert Einstein: everything is energy, and that is all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality that you want, and you cannot help but get the reality. This is physics. There is no other way.
Mm,
Isn't that beautiful? Because we just brought to you the adjusted reality. It's frequency, it's sound of healing, the sound of being able to unclutter our thoughts, to be able to be creative, which is exactly where you are. So, to close up today, you have been just an amazing wealth of knowledge for our listeners in adjusted reality and the stressful situations we all face. I want to give you the final words, the ability to take where you have been, that high pressured situation, where careers sometimes take over who you are, because everybody should start with a to be list and not a to do list in the
mm.
day. Is there anything you would like our listeners to take away from that adds to their health and not take away from their health?
Yeah, I would say it's really important to follow your yes. And I like what you said, and a to be list. There's the famous organization of ways of being, right? Be, do, have. Be the person, then you do the thing, then you have what you want, not have, do, be, or not just do, have, right? It's be embodied. Only you know what embodying feels like, right? It's getting still enough and quiet enough to get and grounded enough to know where you're planting yourself in the world accurately, right? And with integrity, right? Like that your mission aligned, that your words and your actions match what you say you want, right? That those things be aligned. And I think it starts with the healthy body. We talked about this off camera that we are the goose that lays the golden eggs, right? Like we are the apparatus that creates the things that we want in the world. So you have to take care of yourself. You got to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can help everybody else in the world. And so for me, it's stretching. Every morning I stretch. It's become a little bit of a yoga. I do little mantras. Not every morning I could do it. This morning I didn't. I have a world record 6 Zooms today, so I jumped right into it to be prepared. But tonight, right before I go to bed, I'm gonna stretch. I'm gonna tend to my body, and then a nice hot shower, maybe a massage. That's what I like to do. It brings me back to self, and bringing me back to self allows me to be embodied. So whatever your practice is, maybe for you it's just listening to your ear pods, your favorite podcast, adjusted reality in your headphones. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's watching your favorite show. And if you're new parents, especially if you're a new mother, I know oftentimes it's hard for you to make space in your own body for your own body, but it is important that you have space or you create that space, even but for a second, for your own internal world to be embodied, right? That you're not always doing, right? Or you're not always giving, or you're not always taking, right? So that you can just be. And within that being, it becomes clear what is working for you and what is not. It's only the times when we're out of consciousness, when we're out of being embodied, that we say yes to things that we don't really mean,
Yeah.
right? And you start to notice the more that you're still and that you're present with self, the things that are not naturally vibrating with you will fall off. The people you shouldn't be talking to, the opportunities that you don't really want to say yes to, will begin to be like, it's not working. And that's to your benefit. But also, related but separate is hold space and grieve the person that you were. I think a lot of times we don't think about this as we're evolving and taking on new identities and being more of ourselves. The more of ourselves we become, the less of other people's suggestions that we identify with. And then, there may have been some comfortability and some perks with minimizing self. And once you begin to actualize, there's pieces of yourself you have to grieve and you have to mourn that. And it took me a long time to learn that, right? And that's why we often self-sabotage because we want to regulate back into ways of being that are not ourselves. Mourn it, embody it, and find your yes.
Outstanding. Well, we can't thank you enough for saying yes to adjusted reality. And really, truly, our listeners, I think, can walk away now with more on how to do and be and have things that will make their lives more enjoyable, not just for themselves, but as you said, the community around them, because we don't go alone. So thank you so much, Rowan, for being with us today. We truly are blessed that you shared your time. And I know you got to get back on those other Zooms, but you'll remember to stretch tonight with intention that you are the person you are because you shared who you are and why you care.
Hmm. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank you for tuning into Adjusted Reality as we spoke to Roahn Hylton. What an incredible individual. It's an incredible music journey, but also just sharing the sound of healing. What does it mean when you come into your world? What are the choices you can make? What happens when you feel like you're not good enough to take that next step? Your health depends on how you mindfully walk through each day, and you get choices. Are you making the choice that's right for you? As Rowan said, I want the yes people in my life. I want the people that can and will make a difference. I want the wisdom, the energy, the love, the commitment, the perseverance to be with me. You can't go alone. It's a weave of bringing people together. And Rowan did such a beautiful, beautiful way of addressing what it looks like to have the sound of healing in your life. As you know, this podcast was brought to you by the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. We know life moves pretty fast, and we want to make sure you never miss an episode. So visit the4cp.org/adjusted reality. Subscribe to our newsletter. Interested in hearing more from a specific guest? Well, you can do that. That's how we got Roahn Hylton. You can make guest recommendations right there. And don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast with family and friends. And we always love you to rate and review. Now, if you're feeling so inspired to learn more about chiropractic, to better your life, you can find a doctor near you by visiting f4cp.org/find a doctor. If you want to supercharge your whole being, well, our brand new book, Adjusted Reality, comes out on October 14th. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can click the link below in the description of this episode and you can get your copy today. We appreciate your support and, as always, look forward to you checking back in again with us soon.